Well, here it is, folks. The first Super Tournament of the year, 2015, the 77th Tata Steel Chess Tournament. Great action, great tournament, great world-class players. Don't miss any of the action. Here are the standings after 6 rounds in the 77th edition of Tata Steel Chess Masters section. One of my favorite tournaments. In first place, 4.5 points. Guy I like a lot. He's a really interesting character. Vasily Ivanchuk from Ukraine. With 4 points, Yavsatsik, I believe it's pronounced. Carlsen-Rd.6, new to the U.S. chess. He's formerly from the Philippines. So Carlsen's back in the hunt, only half a point behind. Vasily Graf and Ding from China and Giri from the Netherlands at 3.5. Caruana, oddly enough, in 8th place with 3 points with Wajabov. Sarek from Croatia with 2.5. Hao Yifan from China, current women's world champion, 2 points. Van Wheelie and Aronian with 2. And Jobava, poor Jobava. He plays exciting games though, but who would have thought that after 6 rounds, Levin Aronian from Armenia, number 2 in the world for a long, long time, would be in 13th place with 2 points out of 6 games and no wins. 2 losses and 4 draws, -2. Who'd have thought? Anyway, that's anybody's tournament now. Let's go to the action. Hi folks, John Cordisco back again. Great game. Hell of a game. Between number 1 and number 2 in the world. Fabiano Caruana is white, Italian-American, playing for Italy as number 2 in the world. And Magnus Carlsen, current world champion from Norway, highest rated player ever in the history of chess, is black. This is the game everyone's been waiting for in this tournament. Number 1, number 2 in the world. Let's get to it. These guys have to win. Ivanchuk, are starting to not run away with it, but they're starting to move up. This is I believe it's a 13-round tournament, and this is round 6. We're not even halfway yet, but when you start falling behind, it's really hard to catch up. Bishop b5, I like that a lot. I should start playing that for white myself on Sicilian games. I usually don't play e4 anymore because of Sicilians. Maybe this will make me change my mind, but I've tried other openings in my tournament games, and I'll tell you the truth. It just comes down to this. For some reason, when I'm under pressure in tournament games, I just suck. Not all the time, but enough. Oh well. g6, bishop takes right away. D takes. Interesting though. The computer likes B takes just a hair better than D takes. When I say a hair, well, it just switched to D takes. It's within 1/100th of a point. So those of you who want to take with the B pawn next time, that's acceptable as well. D takes, D3, bishop H3, stopping the bishop from going to G4, knight F6. I think what would happen is before that, if the bishop did go here, it's not that big of a deal if white chases that bishop off. Because I think eventually white will castle queenside. It's like normal Sicilian. So I think that's the strategy there. H3, knight F6, knight C3, B6. Interesting move there. I'm not sure really why that was done. You're not going to fianchettle the bishop on C8. The computer calls for queen to C7 and castle as the 2 top moves. But I'm sure this is part of Magnus's preparation. And those of you that are maybe make comments in the video here, I am not criticizing the current world champion. I'm just saying, I'm just wondering why he did that. Maybe someday we can sit down with Magnus and he can explain things. Bishop B3, E5. I don't like that so much. It hems in that dark squared bishop. The computer calls for queen to C7 or castle. Again, I'm not criticizing Magnus. This is all part of his preparation. And I'm sure his computers are a lot more powerful than mine. E5, castles. Those of you that were wondering if knight had taken, knight takes, queen F3. Oops. Well, it doesn't look too good. You have to go F5. And that sucks already. Knight takes G6. And then you take the knight on E4. Not good. Castles, castles. A3. I think he was trying to expand a little bit on the queen side, Fabiano. Queen E7. Queen to B1. We see the queen going there now. He's trying to open it up on the queen side a little. He's got this bishop bearing down. Here, pawns. Queen, rook. Go in that direction. I think that's what he's looking at. Knight H5, and that is the computer move as well. Pawn. And that's because he wanted to go F5. Here he goes. He's going for it. He's opening up the position. I think knight F4 would have been a good move as well. F5. Pawn takes. He hits the bishop. Bishop has to come back. And then B takes. Now, he's got some... He's shoving him over. He's trying to go after white on the king side. And I think at the expense of these double pawns. But I think it was worth it for Magnus. Queen to B3 check. Bishop goes to E6. Queen to A4. Now, immediately, Fabiano's starting to go after these isolated pawns. First pawn on C6. Rook A to C8 to guard that. And now he goes Queen A5. He's going to go after the other pawn. And this is where I think Magnus makes his decision, what he wants to do. He needs to win. Fabiano needs to win. Computer calls for C4, but he goes G5. He's going for it. Like I said, the computer calls for C4, and then knight to A4 would be the follow-up to that. That's not exactly inspiring by any means. And I think Magnus sat it for a long time before he went to G5, and he finally said, you know what, I'm going for it. Rook F to B1 or knight to A4. Knight to A4. And this is where... Now, believe it or not, after that move G4, white's up about a pawn and a quarter. But look, he's got a hell of an attack going on to white here. H takes. If queen had taken instead, queen F6, H takes, the bishop takes. And that looks a little bit better for white, to tell you the truth. But he plays H takes, the bishop takes. Now this attack looks really scary, but I'm not really sure how strong it is yet. Queen takes. Now if he had played knight takes instead, those of you that are wondering, after bishop takes, pawn takes, queen checks, king to H1, rook to F6, and it's over. The white king can't escape, no matter what. Queen takes, queen F6. Magnus does not want to trade. He's going for the attack. The worst thing you do is possibly trade your queen. There's no advantage to him for him to do that. Knight to H2. Now, it's only about a third of a pawn advantage for white, but I'll tell you the truth, it seems a hell of a lot easier to play black. F3. Knight takes G4. Sacrifices a piece. Queen to G6. It's just a temporary sacrifice. Queen E7. Pawn takes. Rook F to B1. All correct moves so far. Now it's dead even. Now those of you that are wondering if he had taken a pawn instead. The mating combination. Queen takes, king H2, rook F3, queen checks, queen takes. He has to take the queen. The game's over. It's a mating attack anyway. So not taking the pawn. And sometimes that happens when you have a pawn that far down in front of the enemy king. He shields the king. He ends up protecting the enemy king, kind of a traitor. Queen takes. Queen to G5. He's desperately trying to trade queens here. Queen to E2. Queen to E3. Fabiano's looking to trade queens. Magnus goes back to G5. Now, we're on move 27. And I remember watching this on livestream.com. And Caruana's white was starting to get really low on time. In fact, I think it was move 39 on the 40 move time control. He had 2 seconds left. They have a 30-second increment. So when he hit the clock on his 39th move, it showed 32 seconds, which means he was down to 2 seconds. So he's starting to run out of time here. Finally, Magnus takes the queen. Gave it a long thought. Took the traded queens. Knight to f4. Now, you are white. You're Caruana. What do you do now? You're starting to get low in time. You're coming up on move 29. The queens are off the board. It looks fairly even. What do you do? What do you do? If you take here and he retakes, you might have to give up the exchange. Because if you move the rook, he's going to move pawn here. And he gave it a lot of thought, and he decided to take the knight. It went from a even game to just a quarter of a point advantage for black. Nothing fancy. E takes. King takes. F3 check. Okay. Not as good, believe it or not, is bishop takes rook. Because after rook takes F3 check, King F1, it's less than a half a pawn advantage for black. I think white can draw this with those center pawns. But after F3 checks, what do you do? What do you do? Now there's 3 choices for white. King H3, H2, and F1. They're all pretty close in score. King to F1. Do you take the rook in the corner? Stop the video now and find a better move than that for black. Before I show it to you, stop the video. Rook to F4. Amazing stuff. You got the rook can swing over and mate. This bishop can come here and tie up this diagonal. Nice. So what do you do? King to E1 is a disaster. Absolute disaster. He goes going to go rook to D8. C3, what else can he do? He's got to tie that up. And now it's an almost 3-point advantage for Carlsen. Rook to D8. Computer calls for king to E1. But he can't do that. He has to go D4. And now it's just, you try to save yourself and you dig yourself deeper. It's like struggling in quicksand. The more you struggle, the deeper you get. Just give you an idea. King to E1. Rook takes. Rook B8 check. King check. King. Rook takes. King takes. It's over. You're going to lose the house here. After D4, bishop H6. Nice. Nice move there. Computer like bishop takes D4 first. Actually, that probably would have been a better move. We're on move 33, and I think Carlsen wanted to move quickly because Caruana was running out of time. If he had taken the pawn, he has to go king to E1, and then rook takes, king to D2, bishop takes, discovered check, king C2, rook. You get the idea. He's busted. Rook checks, king, rook E4, king D3, rook takes B1. It's over. Absolutely over. After bishop H6, king to E1, then he takes. He's trying to save himself desperately, and he's on move 35. He's running out of time. C5, beautiful move there. Beautiful move there. Now, if rook comes here, if knight takes the pawn, this rook can't come up. Whoops, wrong arrow. Sorry about that. This rook can't come up and say it because it's not guarded by the knight anymore. Nice. King to c2. Pawn takes. King d3. Red move 37. He's down to seconds. Rook e2. c4. Rook takes. Rook to d2 check is actually makes it a little easier. Get their king. Rook takes. Rook. Bishop. Rook. Rook. It's a disaster. Absolute disaster. Rook takes f2. He has to move the rook to d1. I can't think of anything else he can do. Rook to e2. We're on move 39 now. And just before his 40th move to make time control, Fabiano Caruana throws in the towel. Says the hell with it. Give you an idea what would have happened after rook to e2. Rook to g1, best move. King to f7, and it's over. How could he stop all the threats? He can't. What's he going to do? Eventually going to go rook here. This pawn's going to queen. There's so many threats going on. He might even get mated. Anyway, folks, that was a hell of a game. Carlsen under pressure does it again. Beats the number 2 in the world, Fabiano Caruana. Well, anyway, folks, that's one of the games from round 6. A hell of a game. I hope you enjoyed the series here from Tata Steel Chess, one of my favorite tournaments in the world. And look for more videos coming for this. And I would appreciate it if you would please subscribe and click the like button. That would be awesome. And as I always say, if you think chess is just a game, you're not playing it right. Take care, folks. Bye-bye.
Tracy to kids. Tracy to kids. Come in, kids. Come in, kids. It's here at last, the new Dick Tracy two-way wrist radio that keeps you in constant touch with your buddies. Easy to work. Up antenna, switch on, press talk button, and you broadcast from room to room and even house to house. No wires needed, yet voices travel back and forth. Radio on the open road from one bike to another, or when out hiking.
Dad, I found a bear's cave.
Be right down, son.
The powerful, fully transistorized Dick Tracy two-way wrist radio is a real electronic instrument.
Make sure all the fellows get their A-OK Dick Tracy wrist radio so they can keep in touch. Over and out.
The one and only Dick Tracy wrist radio wherever American toys are sold.